presentation in English, but I'm gonna, ask my clients to present in Mandarin, and feel free to enter your questions in the chat room in Mandarin, and that would be no problem. First, I want to talk about MBA application strategy. I saw that about 70% of you who registered for this event are going to apply this year, but actually 30% of you are not even going to be applying till next year or maybe in 2 years. But I think the information I'm going to give you in the presentation can help either one of these groups. If you're planning to apply in the next 6 months to 1 year, I think it can help. But if you're not applying for a year or two, I think the information I'm going to provide to you would still be very helpful and help for you to plan the future. So right now I'm going to share my slides with you and give a little presentation. I'm going to talk about how the admissions committee is going to evaluate you. I'm going to talk about some steps you can take to quickly increase your chances of acceptance and how to plan a strategy. Now, I usually do this presentation in 45 minutes to an hour, and I don't want to spend that much time doing a presentation on Zoom. I don't want you to fall asleep. And I think more importantly, I want you to hear what our clients have to say about their application experiences. So I'm going to shorten this and just quickly go over some of these slides and even skip a few of them. But first, I'm going to talk about how the admissions committee will evaluate you. I think this is an important first step to think about. Before you start the application, you should think about what's the admissions committee looking for? How are they making their decision on who they're going to admit and who they're not going to admit? Well, here's a lot of the things they want MBA applicants, MBA students to have. They want you to be intelligent. They want you to have strong professional experience. They want you to be a leader and have, a lot of involvement. They like people with international experience. They'd like you to be a strong communicator, especially in English, of course. They want to understand your career goals and evaluate them. They want to see that you have knowledge of the school and that you're a fit for the school. They want to understand why you need the MBA degree and anything that's unique about you. So I'm going to talk about each of these elements and how they're going to decide whether you have this or not. And let me just say in the beginning, you don't have to have a 10 out of 10 on every single one of these. Most people don't. Most people are not perfect. You just have to have strengths in some of them. So what you're trying to do is figure out which of these are your strengths, and then you can focus on that in the application. So look, first of all, intelligence, GMAT, GRE, an intelligence test. Your college GPA measures your intelligence. Hardworking too, but still, it measures your intelligence. The major you took, some majors are harder than others. Did you challenge yourself by taking difficult courses in college? Some people took advanced courses even as an undergraduate. So, and your interview performance. So all of these things are measuring your intelligence. I would say most importantly here, the first two, GMAT, GRE, and GPA. And if you have questions about GMAT or GRE, which is better, a lot of people have that question. I think more and more people are taking GRE. I think in the past, the schools really preferred GMAT, but that might be changing a little bit. More and more people are taking GRE. But so either test you choose, make sure you get a really good score. That's the bottom line. I think they accept GRE, it's fine. It just, the score has to be good. Or if you take GMAT, the score has to be good. You need to be at the average, close to the average for the schools you're targeting. All right, next, professional experience. I would say this is the most important thing for an MBA application. That's what they really care about the most. You're supposed to be, in a career and having strong career progress, no matter what industry or function you're in. You could be in a finance role, you could be a consultant, you could be in a non-business role, you could be in a nonprofit, a teacher, a musician. An MBA is really for everyone, but what they're really looking for is who's really standing out in their career, who's making impact. So to evaluate whose professional experience is better than others, they're looking at the company you worked for. The more famous the company, it definitely gives you an advantage because it's hard to get into those famous companies. So, but that's not the only thing. It's not just about who works at a famous company. That does help, but that's not the end of the, end of the story here. They're looking at the industry, the function you worked in. Have you had management experience in this job? What have you achieved? What impacts have you made? That's really the big thing. What have you achieved in your career so far? Have you been promoted? Of course, that's very strong evidence of succeeding. Or even if you haven't been promoted, not some companies promote people every year, right? But other companies, they have more of a flat structure. They don't promote people in less than 5 years or, even 7. So we might just look at increased responsibility. Have you been given responsibility kind of faster than that's what's usual at your level? What have you learned? Have you advanced a lot of skills? Have you gotten international experience? So looking at all these things will help us decide the quality of your work experience. Is it average? Is it excellent? Is it below average? So really, it's your job in this MBA application is to present the story that you are succeeding professionally through your resume, through what you're saying in your essays, through what your recommender is saying about you in their letter, through the stories you tell in the interview. All of this is to paint a picture of having a fair amount of professional success. The next thing they're looking at is who's a leader and who's really out there getting involved, okay? Because let's think about what MBA programs are doing. They're trying to train future business leaders. You're supposed to start a company someday or become a high-level manager, become a partner in a consulting firm. So we're looking for who has demonstrated leadership in the past. If you've demonstrated leadership in the past, it will help convince us that you're likely to be a strong leader in the future. So we're going to be looking at leadership experiences that are professional or non-professional. Things that happen in college still matter. You led a club, you led a team in a business competition, you led a social impact project, either during college or maybe after college. A lot of companies have opportunities to get involved in diversity and inclusion in organizations in their company. So leadership matters, involvement matters, because we want you to get involved when you come to our program. International experience. We like people with international experience because we know that it's easier for you to fit into the international environment in the MBA. You're going to have to work with people from different countries in your study groups, in your project groups. You're going to have to work with them. You're going to have to communicate with them every day. So if you've lived abroad, if you've studied abroad, it's very helpful. It's not a must. It's not that you had to have lived abroad or studied abroad, but it is helpful. And I'll talk more about this later. They're looking at your communication ability, your English communication ability, right? So how are we evaluating your English communication ability? We're looking at your TOEFL, especially the speaking section score. Of course, we're evaluating it through the interview performance. And then some schools even have a video interview first before the interview. So a video interview, a real interview, measuring it through your written communication and your essay. And if you speak other languages, that's bonus points because we know you can communicate with more people the more languages you speak. Now we're looking at career goals. I think a lot of people underestimate how important career goal is to the MBA application. The schools really want to look at your career goal and evaluate and answer these questions. Is this goal really logical? Is it possible for this person to achieve it? Do they have the right skills? Are they really knowledgeable about this industry? Are they enthusiastic about it? Are they committed to it? A lot of people say they want to do something, right? I want to get into investment banking. I want to get into a certain company and be a business analyst. I want to be a consultant. I can say that, but often I ask people this question, but why do you want to be a consultant? What attracts you to it? Why do you think you'd be good at that job? And when you start asking people these questions, you realize that some of them have really thought deeply about it and are, really sure about this job. And other people have no idea. And they really haven't done their research and they haven't really thought deeply about whether that job fits them. The admissions committees are trying to eliminate those people. You're not a college student anymore. It's acceptable when you're a college student or maybe you just graduated to not have a much idea about your career plan. But for MBA, you're supposed to be more mature. You're probably at least 25 and up to 35. In this case, you should have thought more about what type of careers fit you and kind of where you think you're going. And they really want to hear that. And they really want you to convince them that you're going to achieve this goal, because it's all about their placement statistics, right? People who graduate, they want to place, at least 90 or 100% of them in jobs. So if they feel any doubt that whether you could get that job, there's a chance they could reject you. So career goal, really, really important. And to drive this point home, I wanted to show you a real MBA essay question. Look at this essay question from Michigan Ross MBA. Michigan Ross is a place where people from all backgrounds with different career goals can thrive. What is your short-term career goal and why? What is your short-term career goal and why? So that's really the whole question. The whole essay question is, what is your career goal? So I want to challenge you right now to think carefully about your goal, because you're going to need to explain it in essays, in interviews. It's very, very important. Don't underestimate how important selling your career goal is. So for those of you who are applying this year, you're going to apply in round 1 in September or October, or maybe round 2 in January. You need to really think carefully about this if you haven't already. All right, another thing I think people underestimate is how important having knowledge of the school is and showing that you're a fit for the school's culture. Look, they know that you're going to apply to more than one program. Most people do, and you should. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you still need to convince them that they're your top choice, or at least one of your top choices. And you can do that by showing you understand the unique aspects of the program, the culture of that school, of that city. Show them that you fit into it. Show them that you have enthusiasm for their school. They're really, really looking for that enthusiasm. So that's why you're going to try to avoid writing essays and just writing the same essay and sending it to 8 schools. That's usually pretty obvious. And it doesn't mean you're going to be automatically rejected. But when it comes down to I have 100 people I'm going to admit, and I have 200 people I just interviewed, 200 people who are qualified, have great experience, their GMATs are high enough. Now I'm going to look at things like this as a tiebreaker. Okay, who seems more enthusiastic about coming here? Who really, really wants to be part of our community? And then that's how they're going to start making final decisions. So this really matters. And to drive this point home, I'm going to show you another essay question. Look at this question for Columbia MBA. Why do you feel the Columbia Business School is a good fit for you academically, culturally, and professionally? So the whole essay question is, why Columbia, basically? And 300 words is not a super long essay, but still, if you haven't really done the research and thought deeply about specifically why Columbia compared to why not NYU, why not Michigan, why not UCLA, why not Wharton? You need to have reasons in particular for this school. So that requires a lot of research. And I want to point out to you, this is something you're going to need to do. Then they're just looking at, look, who really needs an MBA? Yes, I know you want an MBA. You filled out the application, you paid the application fee. But again, we have too many outstanding candidates that are qualified and have good GMAT scores. Okay, now we're going to look at who really needs this. Are you in the right time in your career? You're not too young, you're not too old. Maybe the older you get, you're closer to EMBA. So you're going to need to, that's why they often say in the interview, why do you need an MBA? And why now? The why now part is kind of getting to this. And to drive that point home, look at this essay question from the Washington Foster MBA program. The question is, tell us about an experience that inspired or confirmed your decision to pursue an MBA. So what is this question asking? It's asking, why do you need an MBA? That's really what it's asking. So they really want you to explain how you came to this decision. They're not saying why Foster. That's Washington Foster's first essay question. Basically, why Foster and what's your career goal? This is the second essay question. This is not about why Foster. This is about Why MBA? Why do you need this? How did you even come to this decision? So I'm showing you this question to help you understand that the programs really care about this issue. You might have to write about it in an essay. You're definitely going to have to talk about it in the interview. The last thing they're looking at is just your personality. Things like, are you mature? Are you outgoing? We like more like outgoing people that we can imagine them working in teams and projects, and speaking out in class. So we like the outgoing type of people who are team players. It's good to convince them of that. Anything that's unique about you. Are you intellectually curious? Meaning you just love to learn new things. So things like this, will give you extra bonus points. So it will make you more attractive to our class. So understanding all these things, these are what MBA programs want. How can you improve your profile now? You might not be applying for 6 months, or you might not be applying for a year and a half. What can you do? All right, so for professional experience, I already pointed out that this is the key thing. So of course, if you can get a better job, go do it. But what if you can't get a better job? Well, what if you just need to stay in your current job? What can you do to enhance your profile? I would say, hey, think about, can you volunteer to lead a challenging project? Maybe you're not a manager yet, but maybe there's a chance to do, project management, get more project management experience. Or maybe there's a chance to do some different responsibility to develop a new skill. Maybe there's a chance to work on a data related project where I would need to learn how to use SQL or something. Or maybe there's a chance to work with an international team if I don't have any international experience. So there's little ways to upgrade your professional experience, upgrade your resume, even without switching your company. I'm not going to talk about leadership, but if you don't have any leadership experience at all in the past, look for ways to get leadership experiences either in your company or outside, maybe in a volunteer, social impact organization, because it will help. If you can convince the school you're a leader, you have a much better chance of being admitted. For international experience, if you don't have international experience working abroad, studying abroad, don't worry. It's not like an automatic rejection. It's just if you do have international experience, it's definitely a selling point. It makes you more attractive. So if you have that, definitely try to communicate that to the school and show them that this is one of my strengths. And a lot of people think, hey, I've never worked abroad, so how am I going to show international experience? Okay, so look, some programs care a lot more about international experience. Let's say INSEAD or the European schools, they seem to really, really, really care about international experience. They even create the motto for their school is called, the business school for the world. So for that type of school, maybe you want to try even harder. And if you don't have international experience living abroad, what can you do? Well, look at the company you work for. Even if you're working in Taiwan, but you have international clients or colleagues, that's a good way to sell your international experience. You can still convince me that you can get in, fit in and succeed in an international environment that way. And believe me, I've seen plenty of people get into INSEAD that have never lived abroad or studied abroad. So just don't panic if you don't have this, okay? For communication skills, look, for TOEFL or IELTS, focus on the speaking section. That's really what they're gonna look at, okay? Focus as much as you can on the English speaking. So yes, you might have a really high TOEFL score, 105, but if your speaking is really a bit low, 21 or below, it could be a reason to ding you, or in other words, reject you. So put a lot of effort into that. And I really encourage you to focus on the interview in advance. A lot of times after you apply, you get the interview invitation. When you get the interview invitation, between the invitation and the actual interview, sometimes it's as little as 1 week. And 1 week is not enough time to really prepare for an intensive interview. So start thinking about the interview in advance, because it's really the most difficult part of all of this. All right, for your career goals, I already mentioned how crucial career goals are in all this. You really need to sell it. So if you're not sure about your goal, if you really have some questions, you're considering a lot of different possibilities, now's the time to go out there and do your research. It's only June. Most schools have not released their applications yet. Go do that research. Talk to people who work in jobs that you're interested in. Start to learn about their industry, their companies. Try to find alumni, try to find anyone, not everyone's going to respond to you when you reach out to them, but a lot of people will. I find a lot of people are very generous with their time, even if they're not an alumni of your school. If you are polite and reach out to them on LinkedIn or some other way, I bet 30% of people will actually talk to you. And I already mentioned that having knowledge of the school, really, really important. So what can you do in this early stage? You're not going to apply for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, or over a year. Start doing your research, make connections with alumni, see if they'll have a little coffee chat with you. If you can't find alumni for the school you're interested in, a lot of schools on their website have MBA ambassadors, which are current students that work part-time in the admissions office. And their job is to interact with you and answer your questions. So definitely reach out to them, take advantage of that. Reading the student blogs is really helpful. I do it frequently and I learn a lot of insights from that. Go to the MBA tour when it's coming up. A lot of schools have webinars frequently, once a month. I don't know if you can make a school visit. Maybe travel is going to start to be possible this summer. I found in the past, the school visit was definitely very helpful. So do this research. Believe me, it's going to help you a lot later on when you need to write those essays about why Columbia, why Duke. And then you need to answer that question in the interview. You're going to be glad you did this research. So that's what you can do right now. Think about what you have. You're probably not strong in every single one of these categories, but I bet you're strong in some of them. So find the ones where you are strong, pick those out. I'm a strong communicator. I'm a really strong team player. I've got a lot of great stories about my teamwork ability. I'm really, really adaptable. I can learn quickly. I've been able to change different responsibilities in my company. I have strong adaptability stories. So most people are not strong in everything. You don't need to pretend you are. Think about where you are strong. Think about where you have your top stories. What skills do they show? Do they show leadership? Do they show creativity? So think about that and then build your strategy around it. And then I suggest you come up with a positioning statement. Come up with a value proposition, which is like a positioning statement that gives a very clear image of you. And then you try to build your application around it. Your resumes, your essays, your letters of recommendation, you try to build it around a value proposition. And let me give you an example of a value proposition so that you understand what I'm talking about. How about this first one? This person says they're a self-motivated and creative risk taker with an entrepreneurial mindset who's established 3 new clubs in college and founded 2 new businesses before the age of 26. So this is the entrepreneurial person. They're creative, they're a risk taker. So I'm going to try to, through my resume, through my essays, I'm going to try to prove that. Or how about this? I'm an intellectually curious, adaptable, and international person. I've learned 4 languages. I've had a lot of international experiences. I've had a lot of diverse knowledge outside of my field. I have a lot of unique hobbies and interests. So that's an example of a positioning statement. And I'm going to just keep that in the back of my mind when I'm writing my resume, when I'm drafting my essays. When I ask the recommender to write the letter for me, I'm going to keep this in mind that this is my strategy and I'm really trying to show this. And I'm going to keep thinking, hey, have I really proven this? And if you haven't proven it, think about which stories will help you do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop this presentation now. I think it's gone on long enough because it's about 11 o'clock. And I want to let our clients really come on and take the stage. But I hope that was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas about, what you can do at this early stage to really start to prepare. It's a little bit early to just jump in and start writing essays right now. but it's not too early to start seriously thinking about this, to start doing your research about the schools, to start really deeply thinking about my career goal and how I'm going to explain that, and how I'm going to explain why I need an MBA, and to really think, what is my strategy going to be? What are my strengths? How am I going to prove that? What stories do I have that can prove it? These are the type of things you can do. This is the type of brainstorming you can do at this early stage. It's only early June. You've got plenty of time. Even if you're still kind of struggling with GMAT and GRE, you can't study all the time. So this is the things you can do in your study breaks. You can start doing your school research and think more about your application. And just one more thing I want to say, I really appreciate you all attending this event. And once you're ready to start applying for the MBA application, I'm willing to give anyone a free consultation. So get on our website, transcendadmissions.com, fill out the free consultation form. We're happy to give you a free 20-minute consultation. Okay, thank you all for being here. I really, really appreciate it. This has been a tough year. We've been, working at home. A lot of us have had to take classes online, taking your GMAT class online. It's been a lot of stress, uncertainty. I think it's been harder to be an MBA applicant this year than any other year. And yet, we've had a lot of outstanding clients that really, really dedicated themselves to every part of the application, from writing essays to preparing for the interview. I'm really impressed with how much effort they put into this. So, and I really just want them to share their stories. And I hope they can inspire you and give you some ideas about the best way to approach your application. Hi, Bernice. Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. Hi, this is Bernice. And she's going to be going into the UCLA MBA program. Congratulations. Bernice, 你可以讲中文就自己介绍。
好 ，Hello， 大家好，我是 Bernice。那我毕业于台湾大学的生产系，我目前在科技业担任 Product Manager 产品经理。那在我担任 Product Manager 之前，我有更长的一段时间都是在科技业担任 Sales 专案的销售人员，所以我的工作经历主要是集中在科技业的产品销售还有行销的这部分。那我申请 MBA 主要是想增加自己的一些商业知识，还有策略性的思考，然后来提高自己未来工作的高度还有广度，为自己多争取一些机会。那我觉得在我申请的过程中呢，选择 David 做我的顾问真的是这辈子最正确的选择之一。因为我在跟 David 合作的5间学校中，我全部都收到了interview 的 invitation。那最后在这5间学校中，有3间学校是收到正取的 offer， 其中2间还带有奖学金，所以真的非常感谢 David 给我的帮忙。那我在 MBA 毕业之后呢，想要继续留在美国当地的科技业工作，所以不论各位同学是对科技业或者是 UCLA， 还是你对面试的准备有问题想要提问，因为刚才提到说我有面试了5间学校嘛，等一下都可以选择我的 breakout room 哦，谢谢大家。
Bernice， 你可以说为什么本来要申请 MBA？
因为刚才提到说我大部分的经历是在科技业担任 sales 人员，那但是做了大概4年多的时间之后，我觉得 sales 的成长对我来说是有点局限，就是因为工作内容是限定在买卖商品，所以说我希望可以提升自己的一些高度，譬如说从一个卖商品的人，然后转变成一个规划商品的人，就是做 PM， 或者是变成一个为商品说故事的人，就是marketing 的 product marketing 的一个角色。那这部分都需要再提升一些商业的知识，然后还有一些技能。那刚才还有提到一个很重要一点，是我想要到美国去工作，就是趁还年轻的好像也没有很年轻的时候去闯一闯，所以这是我当初想要申请 MBA 的原因。
Thank you. You know, a lot
Thank
of people say that in the MBA application process, they learn a lot about themselves because they need to find a lot of stories about achievements and leadership. And they say at the end of this, they ended up learning a lot about themselves. Is there anything you think you learned about yourself that you didn't realize before you got started?
我在申请过程中对自己最大的一个意想不到的点是，其实自己的潜力在这个申请的过程中就是被激发的非常彻底，因为申请是一条蛮漫长的路，从考 GMAT 开始到考托福，然后准备这些 essay， 还有跟校友做 network， 然后包括是跟学校方面的人员做 network， 一直到后续的申请的面试的准备。所以我学到的是，其实自己还有非常非常多的潜力可以在这一种比较漫长然后又辛苦的路上努力。那当然就是这个路上也有非常非常多人给我的帮忙跟一些运气的成分。所以我学到就是未来不论是面对任何的未知或是挑战，都要用同样的态度还有努力及热情去面对，然后超越自己。
Thank you so much. I think
Thank you.
that can inspire some people. And
Yeah.
maybe something else that can inspire people is that you had a couple gaps in your professional experience because of personal reasons.
Yes.
And, you know, it's a common thing where you have a gap of 6 months or even a year. But it can be a problem. The programs want you to explain what you're doing because, like I said before, they really care about your professional experience. They want to see, and they want you to convince them that your professional experience is like on a rocket ship, you know, going straight up. So when you have a long gap, they really want to know. So, you know, for any people out there that have some gaps in their professional experience, do you have advice for them on how to deal with this?
首先是如果可以的话，我建议各位同学不要有 gap year， 因为大部分的学校会要求你要递交额外的 essay 来解释你为什么要有这一个 gap year， 因为时间管理是对 MBA 同学很重要的能力，如果别人可以在职申请，你为什么不行？这就会变成是学校对你的一个顾虑。那如果你很不幸的跟我一样，就是有了一段 gap year 的话，也不要紧张。我的做法是我强烈了我在那一段 gap year 里面做的一些事情，包括我有去学了程式，然后还有协助家人去做一些创业的评估。那我觉得如果这些学习，然后再结合我过去的一些销售经历，我觉得会是一个 soft skill 跟 tough skill 的一个结合，然后可以帮助我在未来 MBA 学习商业知识的过程中，让我有更大的发挥。然后同时其实美国的就业市场也蛮注重一些 transition skills， 所以像我有学了程式这些的，也对我未来在那边就业是能在留那边就业有更大的说服力。所以就是要详列一下你在 gap year 做的事情，然后这些事情可以怎样帮助你在求学或是就业的市场有更大的发挥。我觉得如果可以把这些事情都写清楚的话，就不用太担心。就是我有1年的 gap year， 但是学校最后还是录取我了这样子。
Okay, so let me just say something about that. Having a gap year is definitely not a positive thing. It's more of a negative thing, but as long as you can explain that during that year you did some productive things, it's not fatal. It's not an automatic rejection either, but you do have to explain it. And Wayne, do you want to jump in? I think you had a question for Bernice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Bernice, 我们算熟了，已经聊了很多次。那我觉得大家如果真的有心想要申请 MBA， 然后真的走到 interview 这一关的话， Bernice 刚才那样子的 presentation 跟他的有点已经很像是一个很好的面试技巧了，就是你要让人家感到很自信，然后也非常的稳重。那没关系，这只是一个突然想到的事情。那除此之外，我想问一下 Bernice，其中一个问题是，你在申请的时候，你很突然的就转换了你的工作，然后你那个工作其实看起来蛮短的，那所以这其实对申请来讲，其实蛮具有挑战性的。那你在这过程中，你是怎么去把它包装成，或者是你怎么去跟学校说服说，这是一个好的转换，这是一个好的挑战？
我在申请的过程中，就是去年的11月底的时候换了一个工作，我觉得可能是这辈子最疯狂的决定之一，因为当时除了在准备托福、准备 AC，然后我同时还要适应新公司的工作内容、工作环境，还有新同事，所以那一阵子真的是压力非常大。但是让我想要转换工作的原因，是因为在我的 essay 中，我写的是我希望可以从 sales 销售人员转职成 product manager 产品经理。那我在申请的过程中，我刚好收到了一个公司邀请我去做产品经理的工作。那我觉得这样子的转换会让我的 essay 非常的具有说服力，就是我真的想要去做产品经理，然后我也去尝试了，那并且我在我的论文中就更可以去写一些关于说未来我如果想要做 product manager 的时候，我还需要学习哪些技能，因为新的工作让我对 product manager 的工作内容有更多的了解，所以当时觉得是一个不错的机会，就是再怎么累都要把握。所以我自己的状况是比较特殊。那如果是一般转职的话，我会觉得比较没有那么适合，就是在申请的时候做转职的这个事情。就像Wayne刚才说的，因为会让你有一个很短的工作经历，然后你可能也没有办法取得现任主管的推荐函这样子。
Thanks a lot, Bernice.
Thank you.
恭喜你申请上
谢谢。
UCLA. Okay, next I'm going to bring on Tiffany Wang. She's a healthcare professional and she's going to be going to UT Austin McCombs MBA this year. Welcome, Tiffany. Could you say a few words to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, David. Long time no see.
好久不见。
Yeah. Hi, 大家好，我是 Tiffany。我的背景是healthcare，就是我从阳明大学毕业，所以我原本是在医院做放射师，然后我大学一毕业我就直接到新加坡的医院工作，所以是一开始就是真的是做我的背景 training， 还有我拿的 license 教我做的事情，所以就算是做比较 clinical technical 的部分。然后做了快要3年之后，我就觉得很想转换跑道，所以我就加入了一个牙科器材的公司。那因为在新加坡，大部分公司的regional headquarter 或是 regional hub 都在那边，所以其实我觉得蛮好转换工作的。所以我进公司之后，我就是从产品专员 product specialist 开始做起。然后我负责的区就是整个东南亚，然后到2年之后我就是有跟我的主管讨论，他就有问说你比较想要做marketing 还是做 product 的方向这样，可是其实因为我完全没有 business background， 所以我真的完全没有概念，那就有点算是任凭他们处置。然后我同时还是继续做的 product specialist， 可是就接了一些关于 marketing 的工作这样子，所以那时候刚好公司改组等等，我的负责的范围就增加到整个亚太区，所以包含像日本、韩国、澳洲、纽西兰等等，所以就是算是也接触了更多的市场。那在刚好去年我年初的时候，就是有开始就是在想说，因为也在新加坡待蛮久了，然后也在这个工作做了一阵子， 然后我不知道会不会被公司 promote，然后我也不太确定在这个公司会有什么未来这样，所以我就想说，我还是需要多了解其他市场，然后并且我知道我想要往这个方向，往 commercial 这个方向继续，可是因为我真的没有 business background，所以我才开始就是做一些 research 关于 MBA，然后同一时间竟然我就被 promote 成 product marketing manager 这样，所以我那时候因为那时候就是刚好也是疫情，然后新加坡整个东南亚状况蛮差的，所以其实那时候就是压力也蛮大，因为我真的没有这个背景，但是同时必须就是负责整个亚太区的，就是这个产品线这样子，所以我那时候就是更坚定，我需要有一个 MBA 的这个 degree， 然后也需要就是吸收一些薪资 fill the gap 这样子，所以从大概3月开始，其实我在找 David 之前，其实那时候我的第一次 consultation， 我就在跟他说，我想要申请就是去年9月入学的 Round 3，然后那时候因为也没有做太多功课，然后只是跟一些students or alumni 聊过，然后虽然就有一些人也是说不要申请 Round 3，但我就想说可以呀，可以试看看，然后后来我拿到 interview， 可是因为就到 round 3了嘛，那个位置应该也蛮少的，然后加上真的算准备的很仓促，所以最后就是没有上，然后我就决定要继续好好的准备，然后就是准备今年入学这样子，所以我就跟David 继续合作，那我就先开始准备了我的 GRE，然后托福等等，然后开始这整趟 MBA journey 这样子。
Thanks, Tiffany. I think it's a trend of maybe more healthcare professionals applying for MBA now, and it seems like more MBA programs starting to have more specialization in healthcare courses and concentrations. But maybe if there's some people in the healthcare industry out there and they want to like transition to a business function, that's often the hardest thing. You started working at a hospital,
yep,
and then trying to transition to a business function. That's already a difficult transition. Like, what do you think? How can you achieve that crucial first step? What's the hardest part there?
我觉得我来说 clinical side is kind of my safety net， 就是你要有因为我不太确定大家的 medical 不知道是 license 或是你的 field 是哪方面，不过我是放射师，我台湾跟新加坡的执照，所以对我而言，再怎么样在 commercial 这边如果失败或者我不喜欢，我怎么样都还是可以回去。可是最难的部分应该是你做了 research， 就是你听了大家的经验跟尽可能不同的人聊过天之后，如果你觉得你有兴趣，你应该就要去尝试，就是你就去做了之后，你才会知道喜不喜欢。因为不管怎么样，都是我们分享我们自己的经验。那如果你真的做了之后，在你自己而言，你知道这个工作到底在做什么。然后第二个就是你的履历上面就可以有这个 experience， 所以对你未来不管是规划或是你就真的可以排除这个可能是你不喜欢的事情，那真的要做了才知道你自己喜不喜欢这样子。所以我觉得跨出那一步就蛮难的。我也有看过有一些朋友他们从 clinical 到 commercial 最后还是又回去，因为他不想要这种生活之类的，所以可是就是你做了之后，你就比较知道到底里面在干嘛。
Now, in MBA programs, they do welcome people from different backgrounds, but still a lot of them will have a business background, traditional accounting, finance. There won't be as many people from pure science, pure healthcare backgrounds like you, because they know it is a huge learning curve there. So how do you think you were able to convince the school that you can do it, that you can fit in to the MBA curriculum, and that you really need an MBA?
所以我觉得首先是我真的做了这个career switch before，就是这是一个很好的证明说I'm a like fast learner, I can adapt to a totally new field。那第二个就是因为我真的做过，所以我知道这个知识也好，或是 MBA program 的一些 networking 这些学习的内容都是我需要的。所以因为我有这个转换的背景，它让我更了解我自己，那也知道我到底需要什么。那在写 essay 的时候，在这时候我就可以真的明确的说出哪一些课或者哪一些社团是我真的想要参加，哪一些状况或者哪一些project 是我想要去做的。那第三个就是我的这个 background 就可以带给我的 class 一些不同的想法，或是从 healthcare 的观点看，就算同一件事情，我们在可能做 project 的时候，可能就可以有比较不一样的想法，这样，而不是他们可能全部的人都是从 business background 来，那看事情的角度就比较相似，这样子。
好，你可以跟我们说为什么你很喜欢 UT Austin 吗？为什么觉得 UT Austin 就适合你？
所以UT Austin really one of the big reasons 是 personal reason， 就是因为我的妹妹还有我男朋友都在 Austin， 所以我
That's a good reason.
Yeah, so 这个一直以来都是我的 priority, like my top choice。那第二个是真的，我还是有跟蛮多的学生，有一些是 David 以前的 client， 然后还有从他们有可能我们聊过之后，我就会说我想要多了解，比如说社团或者什么部分，然后他们就会说哦，那你要不要再跟我的谁谁谁哪个同学或者学长姐聊？那我真的聊过之后，然后也参加了他们的一些活动，我自己心里有小比较，就是也参加其他学校的活动，或者跟其他学生聊。那我真的觉得我跟 UT Austin的就那个 vibe 蛮合的，所以就是更加坚定，不是因为有家人在那边，所以我才想去，是我真的想就喜欢这个学校，然后喜欢这个氛围。然后其实在，还没有做这整个 MBA 之前，我也去过 UT，那我就是因为真的去过，然后也蛮喜欢他们那边，喜欢这个城市，也喜欢他们校园的感觉，所以 UT 算是我就是 no doubt top choice
很好。Hi, Wayne. I think you have a question you'd like to ask Tiffany too, right?
Right. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi
那
Wayne，
个 UT Austin 这个地方其实很多一个小小的一个给大家一个建议，Texas Austin 现在已经很多科技公司都从矽谷搬到那个地方去了，所以往科技业要去发展的时候，真的千万不要只看排名。如果你只看排名，很多学校都是一些很小的学校或者很乡下的学校，那要看你自己的相性。那回到 Tiffany 这个部分呢，因为你过去在新加坡工作嘛。那其实不管是 MBA 毕业生，或者是现在没有念 MBA 的人，都很想要出国工作。新加坡是一个非常 popular 的 destination。那这个样子，你有没有给一些大家有想要出国工作、淘金的人一些建议在他们在找工作，尤其是新加坡这个部分？
我觉得新加坡算是一个很好的起点，因为他们就是像刚刚说的，很多在亚太区的总部，如果不是在上海，就是在新加坡。所以当你进一个公司，你一开始你很容易得到就是所谓 regional role，你可以就是照顾的范围是一整个东南亚或者一整个亚太区。那比起来，比如说你如果是在台湾的话，可能通常就是顾台湾跟香港，或者台湾跟澳门这样子。那新加坡第二个好处就是他讲英文，但同时他也讲华语，就是讲中文，所以在适应方面还蛮容易的。然后如果是for healthcare profession，他们新加坡基本上是承认台湾的 license， 台湾的学历，所以在这个方面就比较不会有一个 gap，因为像比如说，如果你要直接去美国工作，你直接要去欧洲工作，有一些国家它并不承认你的大学文凭，那就会有一些衔接的课啊，或是之类，你需要再花时间做。那如果你你到了新加坡之后，基本上换工作，就算你是外国人，也蛮容易的。所以，我听到就是算各行各业，就算是比如说像航空业、医疗产业或是科技业，他们现在面试几乎就是一通电话的事情。那有什么事情你就算飞过去，就是4个小时，就很快这样子。所以，如果你想要有一个算是比较大范围或是比较有所谓国际观，但是你想要从亚洲开始的话，我觉得新加坡也是一个很好的地方开始。那你就 LinkedIn 或是不管怎么样，你只要找到就是愿意给你一个 interview 的公司，那你就试试看。他们真的很喜欢台湾人，所以就是试了之后去看看，我觉得很不错。
Thanks for sharing, Tiffany. Okay, next I'm going to introduce Louis Joe. Louis is also admitted to UT Austin, but unfortunately for UT Austin, he's going to IESC in Spain. He's an accounting and corporate finance professional, and it was great working with him, and I want to introduce him. Oh, let him introduce himself to you. Hi, Louis.
Hi,
Can you
David.
say a few words about yourself? Good morning.
Good morning. 大家好，我是 Louis，然后我是台大会计系毕业，然后毕业以后我就先加入PwC 当审计员，就是 auditor，然后在做了2年以后，我觉得就是大家都知道审计员可能比较累，然后可能做的事情比较 routine，所以我就转换到 KPMG 的财顾。那在 KPMG 的时候，我主要有参与过一些企业并购的案子，就也有上市柜，然后也有一些是再生能源的案子。那还有一些是帮助，因为最近这几年再生能源很夯嘛，所以我们有帮助这一些离岸风电或太阳能去取得融资。对，所以大概就是我的工作内容大概就是这样。然后我在申请的时候，我有申请西班牙的 ESA， 然后还有 UT Austin， 对，然后最后就是在跟校友聊过以后，我觉得可能比较适合 ESA， 然后也比较，然后因为巴塞隆纳也是一个很吸引人的城市，对，所以最后决定去 ESA。
Thanks a lot, Louis. I think a lot of people, when they apply for MBA, I can tell it's very, very painful. I can tell they don't enjoy it, but Louis is one of the rare people who I think he really enjoyed this process of self-exploring, trying to find his strengths, trying to find stories, So maybe he can explain to you guys why don't be afraid of it and why you may actually enjoy it. So maybe you can talk about that and what you learned about yourself, Louis.
Okay. 我觉得 David 会这样想，是因为可能我在跟他聊之前，我可能就有写一些我觉得我的一些想法，可能我觉得我的优势在哪边，然后我可能整理一下过去的工作经验，我觉得我可能比较喜欢哪一个类型的专案或工作这样，所以可能给他这个感觉。但我觉得因为我算考试就是算比较早结束，所以我相对有充裕的时间，就是在准备这一块。然后除了跟校友聊，就是对学校了解以外，那有一方面就是对自己想要什么也要更了解。那我觉得申请 MBA 就是一个很好的机会，让你去 revisit， 就是你在学校或你在前面的工作里面。你可能比较喜欢哪一个类型？那你跟别人互动的模式是怎样？那你有哪一些 leadership 的一些经验？那这些，然后也给你一个机会，就是把这些点连接在一起，就是 connect the dots，然后也可以这样顺着去推说你未来想要往哪里走，对吧？所以 我觉得这个是整个过程里面最就是但就是蛮有挑战性，你要花很多时间，那你可能也要可以跟一些你的朋友同事聊聊，但我觉得会是一个蛮宝贵的经验，对。
Okay, so I really do hear a lot of people at the end of the application process say that they really learned about themselves and it was beneficial. So don't be afraid of that. Lean in. You know, even if you don't enjoy writing essays, I bet you're gonna at the end of the process realize that you understand yourself more, which really is helpful. And for you, Lewis, like you mentioned, you were an auditor to start your career. It really is a very common goal for auditors to want to transition to financial advisory and corporate finance and to look for MBAs. So for a lot of these auditors out here who are looking to make the career transition, do you have any advice for them for the next step?
我觉得，除非你要走财会，就是你要继续走财会这类型的工作的话，要不然我觉得你可以把自己当做是大学刚毕业一样，就是给自己多一些时间跟空间去探索。因为第一个审计员的工作很累嘛，然后你可能没有太多时间去准备。那我觉得可以给自己一个小小的时间，就是一个空档，让自己去跟不同人聊，然后做不同的功课，然后去想说你接下来下一步要怎么走。那我觉得，因为就是这个过程蛮重要的。然后，因为审计员相对来说，因为他就是除了查账以外，他其实也可以碰到公司很多不同的function，可能去做内部控制啊什么的。那就是相对来说是一个还不错的跳板，因为你有一个你本来的基础的知识，那你又有一些商业上的理解，对吧？所以我觉得更有一些余裕去做这样的探索。
And then like you mentioned, you moved to M&A financial advisory, but maybe you can talk about how you decided for MBA at that point and why you thought you needed an MBA.
我觉得，因为像我们做并购或者是做一些专案，其实都相对来说是一个短期的。你可能帮他，就是像 M&A 的话，你就是帮他执行整个过程，但你没有机会去参与前段，说，哎，我为什么要发起这个并购案？那结束以后，那些结束以后公司的整合啊，一些策略上的调整，其实以第三方的 financial advisor 来说，其实没有太多机会去参与。所以我就想要就是扩展我的就是在这一个流程里面的一些角色。那所以我 post MBA 可能是想要往公司的策略投资或者是 consulting 走。那这个时候 MBA 就会是一个很好的帮助，就是帮我跳脱原本 finance 的 background， 然后去补充一些知识，然后也可以让我有一个就是可能有一个实习的机会，让我有机会去转换。
And you have a common goal, which is to get into consulting post MBA. And a lot of people worry, I've never been a consultant before, or, a lot of people have this goal. So how can I stand out? How can I convince the school that I can really succeed in getting a job in management consulting when I graduate? So do you have any advice for people who have this goal and how to present it to the school?
我觉得最直接的建议就是，如果你的公司就是有机会让你去争取一些 project，就是非例行性的一些 project 的话，我觉得你可以主动去争取。因为我觉得我有一个点是，虽然我是做财顾，但是刚好有一个机会，我可以跟就是 KPMG 里面的管顾团队一起去执行一个组织转型案。那其实这个就是其实是完全的顾问，就是管理顾问案。那我在这个过程中，我就可以去了解说，哎，他们是怎么去执行这个专案，然后怎么跟客户去那个沟通，然后怎么去规划。那我觉得这个就会成为一个素材，就是当你要说服学校说，其实已经很了解，就是 consulting 在干嘛，然后你也有过一些经验，你知道你有哪一些不足的地方要去补足，这样。所以我觉得，但因为我是第三方，但如果 是在 corporate 的话，说不定可以去争取一下类似的机会。那你可以把它放进你的 essay 里面。对。
Okay, thanks a lot, Louis. I think Wayne, you had a question for Louis as well, right?
对，我一定是每一个人到最后都会一定会有一个问题要问的。
The most important question.
然后我们听了很多这个工作的事情，我们来聊一点别的吧。我们来聊一点你这个 IESE 这个 MBA program， 它有2个嘛，它的有一个 formal interview 跟 assessment day。你可不可以 formal interview 我们就不说了，这大家都知道。那 assessment day 是什么样的东西？你跟大家再描述一下好不好？
好，就是formal interview 以后，他就会决定说哪一些人，就是他可能他邀请一些人来这个 assessment day。那 assessment day 就是他可能在那个日期前1个礼拜就会寄给你一个很简短的 case， 然后可能才3、4页，然后内容也不会太专业，可能就是一些比较general， 然后大家可能在平常工作上都有机会遇到的，然后就是可以先看一下那个。然后到当天了以后，他会把大家分组，那一个组大概我印象中是8个人上下。那时候因为疫情的关系，所以都是用 Zoom 来进行。然后可能一开始教授就会其实就有点像直接模拟上课，但他就是一开始会讲这个 case 的 background， 然后再带出一些问题，然后再把你们分回去各个讨论室里面。那你就是要跟你的组员来讨论说，针对这个问题，你们觉得怎么样比较好？那为什么？然后你的组员可能就会有来自世界各地的人，像我那时候有日本人，有印度人，有东欧的人，有德国人，然后大家就是要一起讨论说你们这一组的答案是什么。那旁边就会有一个 adcom， 就是在那边观察你们，但他基本上不会干涉你们的讨论。对，然后我觉得，因为不可能大家都是主导讨论的人，但我觉得就是适时的发表你的意见，然后之后可能帮忙大家去 wrap up， 就是提出一些结论，就是表现出你的参与度。其实我觉得应该就不会有太大的问题。对。
Okay, IESE really has a unique experience there, and quite interesting. No other program has something exactly like that. I like their approach, and it's a great program. Good luck to you next year, Louis. I hope you really enjoy your life in Barcelona.
Thanks, David.
Okay, next I'm going to invite Jason Lee to talk. Jason will be going to Carnegie Mellon Tepper MBA program next year. I know he's really excited, and we're really happy to have him. Jason, would you mind saying a few words to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure about that. Hi, David. Hi, everybody. Hi, 大家，我是 Jason， 毕业于东吴大学会计系。那在毕业之后，就是我一开始做的跟就是 Louis 也一样，是 audit。我在 Deloitte 做了大概3年多的 audit， 然后也做了蛮多不同的就是 project。我主要客户是一家就是大型电信公司，然后做了非常多的内控、稽核相关的，也学了不少。那另外也同时把一件事就是又推上市，但做了几年之后，就是我就怀疑这真的会是我自己想做的吗？我一辈子想做的是复合这些东西吗？还有我想做一些其他更有 impact 的东西。所以后来我转职加入一间健身器材公司，那就做了一些比较不一样的，例如像市场开发或营运相关的。那我们也做了蛮多不同的计划，例如像有一间就是在德国公司被我们买下来，所以我们做了 post merger integration。那还有一些我们在欧洲 startup 的新公司，所以建立一些新的内控制度。还有就是我们跟一家大公司签了合约，然后做一些商标授权相关的。那后来就是我在读 MBA 的前1年，我们公司因为就是在疫情赚了不少钱，然后我们也有就是危机意识，觉得好像如果我们一直做健身器材，可能没办法就是长期生存，那我们就决定发展我们的复健医疗业务。然后我接下来就是我们复健医疗业务的就是市场开展，所以也开展了蛮多在北美啊，还有欧洲，还有就中东相关的复健医疗开展。那后来觉得就是由于就是我们公司在这方面还是比较缺乏一些，然后因为自己的工作就是蛮多年了，好像需要更多的成长，然后需要成长自己的 network 啊， 还是一些 soft skill、hard skill 的部分，所以后来决定就是来念 MBA。谢谢。
Thanks a lot, Jason. Actually, you applied last year. Last year was really tough because in 2020, when COVID-19 erupted, a lot of people deferred their admission to 2021. So I don't want to make excuses, but it was really, really competitive last year. And unfortunately, you didn't succeed. But I know you were very optimistic and didn't get upset and just plowed through and kept applying this year and stayed positive. And it happens, it happens to a lot of people. They don't succeed the first time and they need to reapply. So but do you have any words to share for people about reapplying and what that's like and how to approach it?
其实我觉得每件事情都是有一个 silver lining 的。其实 reapply 对我来说是一个非常好的检视，变成我可以做更多的检视，就是我过往的什么成就，或我过往的这些失败，那如何我把它写在 essay 里面，然后有更多的 self reflection， 然后更知道自己会想要做什么，然后同时也可以精进自己更多方面，像我们在工作上有更多的成长，然后像工作之外，我们想做什么更多的课外活动，是可以怎么样去帮助人，更可以跟就是学校还有你自己的东西去 connect 在一起。所以我觉得其实这是一个很好的 journey， 虽然就是多申请了1年，但是反而让我学习到了更多。那我相信未来不管是在读 MBA 还是工作还是生活上，会给我就是更多的帮助。然后其实人生一定会有各种失败跟成功嘛，其实就是你要从失败中再站起来。那我觉得这就是一个很好的就是经验跟 story。
So that's why we say we learn more from our failures than our successes, right?
Yeah, can't agree more.
Now, Jason, I'm not going to tell people what your college GPA was, but it was quite low. So, look, not everyone has a high GPA in college. And the good thing about MBA is that's not the final decision. Is what's your GPA, and we're going to admit people who have the highest GPA. We look at other things. I mean, it's certainly a negative. It certainly makes it harder, but you can overcome it. So do you have any words of encouragement for people out there who weren't studying as hard as they should have been in college?
Yeah, sure about that. 其实我的 GPA 真的是蛮低的啦。如果等一下有人在 breakout 想要聊的话，我可以聊更多。不过就是由于你的 GPA 已经不好了，就是你没办法证明你自己在学校的 academic performance， 那你需要证明更多的就是你如何在工作上你可以取得更多成就，你可以取得就是更多的 promotion 吗？那除了这些 promotion 之外，你中间到底做了什么？你做了什么有关的领导？你做了什么 impact？ 然后你主要去争取了什么样的东西？另外就是在课外部分，你也可以做到更多就是别人做不到的。也许你大学的时候你没有做到很多课外，但是呢，你在就是工作之余，你可能可以协助就是很多大学生，或是很多就是年轻迷惘的人，做一些分享，做一些帮助，这些都是可以帮你加分的地方。然后另外就是因为你已经有一个就是比较 weak 的 point， 你可能要更清楚就是你读 MBA 的目标是什么，为什么你想要读这个 MBA， 就你需要把你整体的其他的包装做得更好，因为这整个是一个 holistic review， 它并不是一个就是 OK 你 GMAT 考了800分，那你就会上最好学校，或是你 GPA 4你就会上最好学校，它是一个大家就是都分下来，你要平均做得好的，那既然你有一点没有做好，你想办法如何用其他的方式去补足，把它做得更好，这大概是我的建议。
Okay, so don't give up. Yes, it's going to make it a little bit harder to succeed, but MBA programs care most about professional experience. If you can really sell it like Jason did, you're going to still have opportunities to succeed. And another thing I mentioned in my presentation is about your professional experience. I did mention that working for a famous company, a large internationally recognized company, definitely gives you an advantage. It's hard to get in those companies. So if you could be hired, we already know that you're good at going through the application process. We know you must have stood out. So it's an advantage. However, there's going to be plenty of people admitted that didn't work at the most famous company. You happen to work at a very large company, Jason, but it's not a really internationally famous one. So do you have any advice for people in this situation of how to really kind of sell that and explain what you do and try to just turn that into an advantage?
Yeah, sure. 在像这种就是大型公司，但是并没有这么多国际知名度的公司里面，有时候你反而可以做到比一些就是国际大型公司更多的 impact， 因为很大型的公司它可能会把你当成一个小螺丝，但你比较在这些中型的企业，你反而你可以争取很多事情，你可能可以做的不只是像销售，你还可以再做营运，或甚至你可以再做更多的例如 M&A 或相关的，当然可能要跟你过往的经历会有关系，但你反而你可以做更多的 impact， 然后学习到更多的事情。那同样的，你有更多的 story 可以去讲，然后你也学到了更多。那我相信这在读 MBA 或是其他工作的时候，这都是你可以去就是分享、帮助别人的地方，是你的 selling point， 然后也是学校会喜欢你，你的同学、你的同事、你的朋友，或在就是社会上交际，大家也都会觉得就是有帮助的地方。所以我觉得我会给的最主要建议，大概就是你可能可以做的是更多的争取，然后做到更多就是有 impact 的专案，然后写出就是更适合你自己的故事。
Thanks, Jason.
好，终于又轮到我来问最后一题了。我觉得 Jason 这样子啊，从 low GPA， 然后 reapplicants， 然后一路申请到 Carnegie Mellon， 那我觉得这个故事真的很励志。那甚至你在 CMU 在决定 admit 你之前，他是把你放在 waitlist 上面的。那其实其实我很想知道说，我们看过很多同学他们可能到 waitlist 之后，他们可能就不愿意去做，因为他觉得经过一次打击，他就不想要再去尝试了。那你在这中间你是做了什么样子的努力，然后让你可以转正的呢？
我觉得这是一个很好的问题。第一点，我觉得就是 evaluate 就是自己整体的 profile。那我看一看，就是我的 GPA 是真的蛮低的，但我觉得我的 GMAT score 其实也比就是 average 高了不少。所以如果真的再去考，其实也不会有多大的帮助。那其实在短时间之内，你也很难就是做到就是新的就是工作 impact。当然你去争取了一些，但最主要我会觉得，那可能就是我如何去跟学校有更多的 interaction， 然后跟校友去聊更多，跟二年级生去聊更多，然后去更认识这个学校，然后最后去提交出来就是说服学校，为什么就是这是一个适合我的学校，然后为什么我适合你们学校，我可以贡献什么，我可以帮助什么。然后最后就是也很幸运的，就是从 waitlist 上面就是被 admit， 对啊。然后另外一点也是，就是你要 leverage， 就是你有被其他学校就是 admit， 然后如果像你有就是获得其他学校的奖学金，你也可以跟学校去讲。其实这些也都会让学校觉得，你是一个值得去被录取的人，他们也会 admit 你，甚至在未来你在 negotiate 奖学金上面，你可以获得更大的帮助。像我自己虽然是 waitlist 被 admit， 然后也非常晚，但后来我还是跟 David 就是拟定，我觉得应该可以去争取一下奖学金，因为反正我其他学校也有给我奖学金嘛。那后来就是也真的就是顺利要到了奖学金，然后所以最后决定去念 CMU。那我觉得这是一个很棒的就是经验，就是让我学习到了很多。
Amazing. Congratulations. Yeah, I think Jason's one of these people who can clearly say that he learned a lot from this MBA application process about himself and how to be more persistent, for sure. Okay, thanks a lot, Jason. And we have one more person who's going to talk now, Grace, but I just want to remind you, after we get through everyone, we're happy to do a Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat and we'll try to respond to your questions. Our last client to talk to us will be Grace Wong. Grace was admitted to the Cornell Johnston MBA program. And I know she's really excited about her MBA studies. And we're really happy to have her here. Welcome, Grace.
Hello, David. Nice to
Hi.
meet you. Hello， 大家好，我是 Grace。那就像刚刚 David 说的，我今年暑假的时候会加入 Cornell Johnston MBA， 然后就 Class 2024。那简单介绍一下我自己的 background， 就是我在刚毕业的前几年的话，我是在商业银行工作，我先后是加入 Standard Chartered Bank 跟 CTBC Bank Corporate Banking， 那我就是做 ARM 的部分。那从2020年开始的时候，我加入一间港商的private equity firm， 那我就是做 investment analyst。那我主要的工作其实比较会像是就是portfolio manager assign 我的一个 deal， 那我就会去开始做一些 due diligence 啊，或者是做 model， 然后做 pitch book， 然后协助这些 portfolio company 去募资。那我现在在 post MBA 的 career goal 的话，会是前往就是 investment banking 的部分。那如果你也对 finance 有兴趣的话，就是 feel free to reach out to me。 那关于我过去1年的 application 的经验的话，我去年大概花了5个月的时间去考到就是我需要的 GRE 的成绩。那我大概是在10月的时候才又去找 David 跟他开始做就是 school selection 的部分。那我觉得刚开始就是其实我觉得我的 timeline 算是有一点赶的，就是我当时候10月初才开始同时考托福跟开始选校。那我觉得很幸运的是，就是我的顾问 David 他真的是一个非常非常专业，而且会超乎你想象有效率的一位顾问，就是他每一份文件所需要花的时间跟那个精准度都是完完全全超越我想象。我觉得我很幸运，就是当时我就真的是选择他跟他合作。然后我也必须说，就是我当时候选的这4间学校，就是 Cornell Johnston， 然后 UCLA Anderson， 然后 Carnegie Mellon Taper 跟Johns Hopkins Carey， 就是这4间学校，我也很幸运的全部都有拿到 admission offer。那有一半的学校是有拿到奖学金的。所以如果你也有在考虑这4间学校的话，待会在我的 breakout room 我也可以分享更多细节的部分。
好，恭喜恭喜。
谢谢。
Grace, actually you took the GMAT many years ago. You were planning to go abroad several years ago, and you just didn't until this year. Could you maybe explain how you realized that this was the right time for you?
Yeah. 其实我是在7年前的时候补了 A2 GMAT 的课，但我其实没有去考它，就是我是补了习之后啊，我没有去考啊。那时候我已经要大学毕业了，然后那时候我就想说，我觉得我确定我想要出国念书，就我从小都在台湾长大，我所有的经历都在台湾，我就觉得我一定会要出国看一看。但是那时候就是跟就是应该几乎所有大学生一样，就是我不知道我想要念什么，我也不知道什么样的 master 可能会对我的职业比较有帮助，所以我就这样就先后去了，就像我刚刚讲的，我先去了 Standard Chartered Bank， 后来去 CTBC Bank 做 Corporate Banking， 然后做着做着就5年了。然后我是在 CTBC 的时候突然发现，我觉得我如果再不出国，我可能这一辈子真的不会再出国了。然后那时候我的一个想法是，我觉得我如果10年后想起来我在此时此刻我是有机会跟资源可以出国，可是我选择不要的话，我觉得我一定会后悔。那至于选择MBA 跟 Master这2件事情的话，对我来说，我觉得 MBA 它并不是一个 technical degree， 它比较算是培育专业经理人的摇篮吗？就是对于比较拥有一些产业经验，或者是甚至有一些工程背景，或者你有各方面专业经验的人来说，你可能就是一个追求管理职位或者是产业转换的一个跳板。那或者是你如果是想要创业族群，你也是一个短时间可以去培养一些business 相关的知识的一个机会。那我觉得选择 MBA 对我来说，它比较算是就是你要去想，就是你接下来的职业目标在哪里，那你现在在哪里？那 MBA 可能就是补足你中间这个 gap 的一个最好的机会跟工具。那不管你是 career changer 还是 career enhancer， 就是我觉得那时候我听过有人有一种讲法是说industry location 跟 function 你3种里面可能可以最多想到要换2个。那我现在想要就是像我刚刚说的，我想要准备前往 investment banking 这条路。那我 function 的部分，我就是从商银换到投银。location 的话，我想要到美国工作，我想从台湾到美国。那我唯一不变的就是我一样待在金融业这个 industry。那如果今天我连 industry 都想换，那它的难度相对就会更高。那我觉得这是你考量你需不需要这个 MBA， 以及 MBA 到底可以怎么帮助你的一个考量的一个过程。
Okay, you really had a long road and a lot of thought, but I'm glad you made this decision now. I think it really was the right time. You know, maybe if you applied 5 years ago, you wouldn't have really understood what you wanted. And I think you have a pretty unique career goal that most people wouldn't have. Would you mind sharing that with us?
OK， 就是我当初就像我刚刚讲的，就是我短期的 career goal 的话，我就会 target investment banking。然后我长期
long-term goal. It's the long-term goal that's really unique.
OK， 就是长期的话，就是当时候我跟 David 讲的，就我们 essay 在里面写的，我想要 set up 我自己一个 own fund， 那我会去投 footwear 跟 fashion industry， 然后我要成立一个shoe recycling company。然后 那时候我有跟 David 讲的，我的目标是就是我想要帮助开发中国家的一些年轻人，就是用这个 company 去提供他们就业机会，甚至是一些职能教育。那我觉得我会有这样的目标，就是放在这个故事能够放在 essay 里面。我觉得就是第一个是我写的东西是我真的很有兴趣的，就是我记得我那时候在想我的 essay 的时候，然后我有一个很要好的前同事就跟我说，他当初在办公室会注意到我，是因为我脚上穿了一双绿色的 Malolo 鞋子，然后我就想说，对，这是一个我一直都很有兴趣的产业，然后我同时也有去做功课，就是我那时候想说我成立一个我自己的 fund， 可是我要怎么去，我有办法直接就是入股这些 family business 吗？这是可行的吗？我也的确有去做这些功课。然后第二个点是我觉得是去发现问题，就是我是一个在金融业待了就是到今年出国前会是7年的人，那我过去几年我也有在一个 non-profit 叫 Step 30做志工。那其实诚实来讲，我并不是那种非常非常非常热爱做这种志工的人，就是我其实觉得我常常觉得 non-profit 让我觉得很无力，就是我在金融业上班，我觉得很多 non-profit 最终缺的还是资金。那这也的确就是我在 Step 30这个组织里面看到的，它是一个募集救鞋物资，然后送去给非洲的孩子的一个单位，因为非洲的小孩每天都要至少步行1个小时，然后去常常因为没有鞋子穿，所以就感染沙蚤，甚至是会死亡，所以他们就会募集台湾这边很多的旧鞋，然后把它运去非洲给这些孩子穿。可是 Step 30就是在我这2年做志工的时候，我看到的是他们从来都没有缺过物资，就即使在 COVID-19 期间，也是有大量非常非常多，每天都至少有20到50个人一直在问说，他们可不可以捐鞋过来？可是其实 Step 30缺的是钱，就是在 COVID 期间，航运费相当高的惊人，所以他们仓库都要爆了，却还是没有办法把这些鞋运送出去给非洲。所以我就发现一个问题，就是其实你想要 do good， 其实你还是缺的是资金，就是最有利的就是做 impact investment。然后第3个就是我发现这件事情是可以结合我的专业背景的，而且这也是我想要做的，就是我的终极目标是我可以成立我自己的 fund， 那我想要做 impact investment， 就是我认为 finance 是可以拿来做，就是可以做很多推动好事的能力，就是它可以你可以有企业人才，你可以有创意的这些发想，甚至是推动这些资金来做 social improvement。然后所以这是我的 long term goal。但我也必须要说，就是以申请这条路来讲，如果你的 long term goal 其实还没有这么明确的轮廓或故事，其实你也不用担心。就是我觉得我在面试的过程中，就是其实大部分尤其的 interviewer， 尤其是 alumni 的话，他们比较在乎你的 short term goal， 毕竟谁知道你10年后会做什么，就是他其实比较在乎你的 short term goal 是不是够实际，你的 background 加上他的 MBA 是不是真的可以达到这个目标，那个才是他们更在乎的。那至于 long term 的部分，大家可以就是如果现在有空就开始稍微想一想，但也不用觉得太 stress。
Yeah, I agree. They care more about your short-term goal, but they still do care about the long-term goal. They want to see that there's a plan there. And anyone can just say, I want to start a company, I want to do good. But if you really want to drive the point home, you need to take a little bit more action, like Grace did. She was really working for a nonprofit related to this, and it really made the story much more believable and interesting. Mm-hmm. So that extra effort paid off, and I'm glad you did it.
Thanks.
I think we're going to ask you one more question, and then we'll move on and do the Q&A.
Right. Hello, Grace. 你真的是非常厉害的强者 ，UCLA、Cornell、Carnegie Mellon、Johns Hopkins 全部都申请上了，很少有 candidates 可以这样子这么厉害，满手 offer 不知道怎么选择学校。
谢谢。
那我们刚刚看到 chat 里面也有人稍微问一下说，怎么样去做这些学校的选择？当你在收到这些 offer 的时候，你是用什么样子的criteria 去看一下，就是你要去哪些学校？
我倒过来讲好了，就是我不太确定大家在研究这些学校的时候有没有看过 Johns Hopkins， 因为它其实并没有在 ranking 里面，就是它比较像是一个 startup business school， 然后它的商学院只有15年而已，所以对我来说那个时候我跟 David 在讨论的就是它对我来说比较算是一个比较安全比较保底的学校，然后我也确定我应该可以拿到 offer。然后至于另外3间学校就是 Cornell、Johnston、UCLA 跟 Carnegie Mellon， 单纯你看它的 ranking 的话 ，Cornell 15，CMU 16，UCLA 17，其实它并没有差很多。然后当时候我拿到奖学金的是 CMU， 所以其实我也有跟我的家人有一段时间蛮长的在讨论，就是我的家人觉得，哎，你为什么不就去 Carnegie Mellon 就好了？就是他既然提供你这么多奖学金，你为什么不去拿呢？那其实我当时候最后的考量，其实还是职涯方面，就是给大家几个数字，那其实那都是学校 employment report 里面就会写的，就是在 Cornell Johnston graduate 里面有超过30%人，就是36% 都是在 financial services 工作，然后consulting 是第二，是27%，然后最后是 tech 14%，但是反过来的 UCLA 跟 Carnegie Mellon有60%的人都是毕业后都是在 consulting 跟 technology， 然后只有不到15% 的 graduate 是在 finance industry 的。然后如果你再去更细的去看它的 job function 的 breakdown 的话，就是像我刚刚讲，我target investment banking 这个职位的话，有25% 的人在 Cornell 是就是成功的进到 investment banking 的，可是 UCLA 是5%，那 CMU 的部分是甚至不到1%。那对我来说，我觉得就像我刚刚说的，我觉得 MBA 不是一个 technical degree， 它是一个 career change 跟 enhance 的机会。那我觉得 Johnston 是可以提供我最多 finance 相关的资源的。那这也是在我在申请过程中跟很多学长姐聊的时候就发现到的，就 Cornell Johnston 的确有很多跟我一样去 target 这一块的人，然后过去一直以来就是学长姐一届带着一届去做这个 recruiting process， 所以我就放弃了奖学金，决定投资我自己。然后就像很多人都会说30岁了别人买车买房，那我们就是买一个 MBA 的学位跟梦想。
It's great to have choices. I want to say one more thing about Grace. You know, Grace made me feel really old a few months ago because when we realized that her boss right now was my client like 10 years ago. He went to MBA and graduated, and now he's supervising Grace's work. So yeah. I appreciate Grace for making me feel really old by telling me that her boss used to be our client.
10年前吧。
Thanks for sharing, Grace.
Thanks.
And I see we got a few questions.
Yeah, 在我们回答我们这些问题之前，我们创生教育呢，在6月30号之前，如果来 free consultation 我们然后是决定跟我们签约的话，我们会有85折的优惠。那1个礼拜内决定呢签约的话，我们还会再马上打2000元的折扣。所以呢，这是早鸟优惠，过6月30号就没有咯。OK， 好，那我们就到我们的 Q&A session 咯。
Thanks. So in the first questions in Mandarin, can you read that? From Amy.
Just one second. Amy 问的问题是，请问欧洲 MBA 比较偏好 GMAT 还是 GRE 分数？ So for European MBA, is it GMAT or GRE preferable? Can we talk about this?
I don't think they have the preference. I mean, business schools historically they used to only accept GMAT, but now they're all accepting GRE. So they shouldn't, accept GRE but say, oh, but we don't like it, we prefer GMAT. If that's really what they wanted, they don't need to accept GRE. So it's okay to take GRE. Like I said before, whatever test you choose, just get a really good score. But the good news about European schools is I think they put a little bit less weight on the GMAT and GRE compared to the US. The US schools really care more about it. In the European schools, the average is not quite as high. So that is good news if your test is not super high. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question from Andy. He says, is it better for an applicant to work for a top foreign bank, like a famous bank, or a local bank in the front office? So famous bank in the back office, which is more of an operations job, or a local bank in the front office, which is more of a sales job or an analyst? Well, that's a really difficult question, Andy. It really is difficult. I think I usually tell people that the best job is the one that's more related to your future goal. So if your future goal is to be a trader or, a research analyst, it's better to get experience directly related to that. So yes, working for a famous international bank has its advantage, but if the job you're doing there is really unrelated to what you want to do, then it's not perfect. So it might be better to work at the local bank in the job that's more related to what you want to do. And it's easier to say, look, I'm succeeding in this job, I'm learning the skills. And I would say that would probably give you a little bit better chance to succeed. I don't want to, I know it's a really tough choice, but I would probably lean towards the front office job. Okay, the next question is from Steve. He asked, how do you choose which university to go to? Your area, I guess your area of expertise, your field, the tuition, advantage of the school. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to choose a school. That's why you need to do the research. Look at their advantages, and maybe you mean they're really good in marketing, they're really good in finance, they're really good in supply chain management. That might help you choose. Or look at the industries where the graduates are hired. Some schools place a lot of people in the tech industry or healthcare, or more people at that school start businesses. Think about your goal and what companies recruit there. Are those the companies that interest you? Yeah, think about where you want to live. Do you prefer to live in Chicago? Do you prefer to live on the East Coast? Do you have any preference there? Would you prefer a really big program where there's more courses offered, more students, but you don't get to know everyone, or a small program where you know everyone's name? Maybe you'll feel more comfortable there. So there's a lot of reasons to choose a school, and that's why you need to talk to alumni and students and try to just get a sense of what you prefer. So that's why I was trying to say before, it takes a lot of research, and it's good to start that right now. I'll move on to the next question from Miles. For US MBA, should I seriously consider a program that has STEM, or should I not consider that as a priority? Well, the good news is that most MBA programs in the US have got the STEM designation. Not every school have the same way to get it, but usually what you need to do is take like a concentration or a major in business analytics or management science. And then as long as you take that concentration, you can get STEM. Or some programs like University of Michigan, you have to get a double degree. So you can get like a second MBA MS in like information management, and you can get STEM. But pretty much every top 30 or 50 MBA program in the US has STEM now in some way. So actually you don't really have to choose, because they all offer it. And sure, it's an advantage. You have 3 years to go through the lottery to get the H-1B visa. 3 chances to get it instead of 1 chance. Next question from Austin. Based on my past experience, how much work experience do you need to be successful for MBA? How much work experience do you need? Usually the absolute minimum is 2, but that's usually not enough. 3 would be better, but even 3 is a little bit short. I think the schools would really prefer somewhere between 4 and 7 years. That's when you're really at the average age. That's when it's more easy to prove that you're succeeding in your career. So I think 4 to 7 years is really the perfect time. And I think someone asked a follow-up question about that, which they said, if I only work for 2 years, is that enough? Well, yes, it's enough. I mean, I've seen people with only 2 years of work experience succeed and get into really good MBA programs. So it's definitely possible, but it makes it much harder. You have to really prove that in those 2 years, you're really, really standing out, And it's hard to do that because when you're young, you don't get as much responsibility or leadership. So I wouldn't really encourage you to do that. I mean, if you really are in a hurry and you just can't wait, go for it. I mean, if you don't succeed, you can reapply. But if you say, is that the best time? Is it enough? Usually 2 years isn't enough, because usually you need more time than that to prove to the school that you're really succeeding in your career and showing leadership and making impacts. And just 2 years usually isn't enough to do that. So you'll have a higher probability of success if you wait at least until after 3 years. Another person asked a question. Jenna asked, would I suggest a transfer the year I apply? And she's considering a transfer from a large foreign bank to a smaller foreign investment bank. So from a commercial bank to an investment bank. I would suggest a job transfer to a job that is your dream job. So if your dream job is working at an investment bank, to be an investment banker, so it's always better to work in the job that you really, really want. Because if you're saying, like, in the future, I want to do investment banking, it's much more persuasive if you're already working in a job, even if it's a small investment bank. If I can show I'm already working in that job, it's usually the best thing. And like, the main thing you need to do in the application is just explain your job change. If you have a rational reason for making a job change, they can usually accept it. Now, you need to be cautious. If you're someone who changed your job 5 times in 5 years and you look like a job hopper, that's, usually not a good thing. But if you're not doing that, as long as you have a good reason for the job change, even if it's close to the MBA application deadline, it's usually going to be okay. I think Bernice talked about this before. She had this issue. She was able to succeed and convince the school of why she did this. As long as you have a solid reason, especially if the reason is, hey, this is what I want to do in the future. This is my dream job. We're usually going to be able to accept that. Okay, let me move down here. Austin asked another question. If he's not able to get into the big foreign company in the future, what should I do in the small local company to make sure I increase my chance of succeeding in an MBA? Well, not everyone's going to get into the biggest, most famous company. So if you work for a local company that's not that famous, the positive thing is usually you can get more responsibility, maybe more opportunities for leadership and project management. And hopefully you can sell that and say, look at this, in these 3 or 4 years, I've gotten huge responsibility. I've made bigger impacts. I think this was the right choice for me. It's going to be something like that, Austin. You usually will have more space to show impacts. And if you can show impacts, if you can show achievements, they're going to seriously consider your application. Austin has another question about his GMAT score, which are nearly expired. Will the school accept your score? Well, they'll accept your score if it's not expired. If it's nearly expired, but nearly expired is not expired. So you need to check the dates, and hopefully your GMAT score will be valid. But as long as your GMAT score is valid before that you apply, usually it will be fine. And internships, do they count as my work experience? They do not count very much. So if you've had some really, really, really good internships and like long-term, half a year, at famous companies, maybe, but they don't count for too much. Like, what counts 90% is your full-time work experience. That's what we really care about the most. So the internship's not going to matter that much, maybe a little, if it was a really great internship. Another question by Pei Shi. Thank you for no problem. Hope you enjoyed it. You mentioned age could be a factor. Do I have advice for people in their 30s without management experience? Look, not everyone has lots of management experience. So even if you don't have a lot of management experience, as long as you can show you're doing well in your career, you're making impacts, whatever your KPIs are, you're meeting them, then you can still succeed. So I think, not everyone reaches the title of manager when they get to MBA. Not everyone's a people manager. Actually, most people aren't a people manager. But as long as maybe you can still show leadership in other ways. Maybe you led a project, or maybe you mentored some colleagues, some new hires. So you still may be able to show leadership. And you asked, can I share the slides? Yes, I can. If anyone would like the slides, feel free to email me and I can share you my slides from today's presentation. And one more question at the bottom. Kai Ting asked, according to my experience, what's the biggest difference between applying for MBA and applying for MS degrees like analytics or data science? Well, the biggest difference will be for analytics and data science, they're really just mostly concerned about your technical skills. Can you handle the quantitative, the math elements? How much have you used Python? How much have you used SQL in your life? Have you done any data projects? Have you ever done an analyst intern? Everything is going to be really mostly about data, and especially data science, which is getting more towards computer science. Whereas MBA is more about general overall experience, leadership, soft skills, and there's more interviewing. Some analytics programs, data science don't even interview. So MBA is looking more holistically at everything and looking for future business leaders, where data science programs are more like looking for future data scientists. But MBA program should lead to any management job. Okay. Thanks for your questions. There were some really good ones there.